on Tuesday, Democrats introduced a new bill that would ban nearly all use of digital advertising targeting on ad markets hosted by platforms like Facebook, Google, and other data brokers. We have Adam Rizzieri here to talk more about what exactly is surveillance advertising. Adam?
It's, in my perspective, surveillance advertising it's a catchy name for online advertising that leverages basically just good targeting. Right now you look at the mainstream ways of advertising to consumers online. Small businesses leverage Google ads, Facebook ads, and those platforms utilize intelligence that tracks user behavior from one website to another, sometimes device data. Being honest, it can get a little creepy sometimes, but the point of it is it's designed to send relevant ads to people that are interested in whatever those products and services are that they would truly seek out. So in this perspective, surveillance advertising is kind of being used to describe really online advertising as we know it today. I think from a bipartisan perspective, everybody agrees that big tech is already too intertwined in our daily, what are we interested in? What are we thinking about? What are we supposed to feel? There's no question there. But, thinking about this concept of the bill as it's being proposed, this is something that's really it's a massive, massive change and overreach from what we already have on the books via your basic privacy laws. As a user, right, you can choose to use browsers that don't track your data from one website to the next, DuckDuckGo, Mozilla, Firefox, even Apple Safari. You can also choose to opt out of tracking through your settings for basic mobile apps as well. So, the point is there are already ways for people to choose to not be followed by advertisers frankly, like me, right? And so if this particular bill is allowed to go forward, it truly is a massive escalation from our existing privacy laws. It basically, it kind of gets rid of the ability to do any of that stuff. So this would basically only allow very broad targeting. So you wouldn't be able to target people based on their interests. You wouldn't be able to target people based on the websites they've visited. You would only be able to target them based on their general location, which is kind of crazy because that basically means you could be a 70-year-old male and you could be seeing advertising for a 14-year-old girl. Or you could be a 14-year-old girl who's being advertised products and services that are geared towards, 30-year-old men. So when you think about what that could create for your online experience, it's a really unpersonalized one. It's kind of a nasty experience altogether.
But isn't that what a lot of people want, is to be not felt like they're being tracked? I know Kristen and I will have conversations in the studio and we're convinced that someone is listening to us because we'll start getting ads for a product that we just talked about in normal conversation. And we're not online at the time.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. I mean, natural language processing is a real thing. Our devices are listening to us. There's smart speakers in most households, in the United States today. So making decisions about kind of what you choose to bring into the household, but then also what you allow your devices to monitor. I think if we can educate the public more on what they can do to stop that exact kind of listening and targeting, because it does feel creepy, right? Mm-hmm. If people are more educated on what they can do to stop that sort of tracking, then I think that will obviously yield a more pleasant outcome. But, there are people that choose to kind of open themselves up to that, right? But you should be allowed to choose which applications you allow access to. Those sometimes super private conversations between spouses or, more casual conversations between colleagues.
I mean, targeting advertising has been a huge upswing with social media, it seems like. And like you said, smart speakers, smart technology, and so we also have this conversation where sometimes there are people who will like the fact that, that came right up to me and I would have never found this product had I, not been targeted for, market research. Before, the market research was, like you said, the demographic and maybe your zip code, and that's just completely changed now for advertisers. So what is now the debate against this bill?
So the debate against this bill, I think there's a few things. First, the conversation about how to regulate big tech is a bipartisan conversation. This particular bill is being pushed forward by 3 Democrat legislators, not by a bipartisan group of people who are kind of really trying to bring both sides of the perspective or both sides of the concern to focus here. So this particular bill, the biggest gripe is the fact that it's just so expansive. It's such a massive departure from what the privacy laws are that we have today. I think if we looked at it and we realized that if the laws that are on paper were I guess, enforced, that would be better than frankly what this bill might offer, because the proponents behind this bill are, this is kind of crazy, but they're advocacy groups that are largely funded by big tech itself. So when you look at the title of the bill, the Banning Surveillance Advertising Act, what does that really mean? Well, it means that they're taking power away from the individuals who want to choose whether or not they could be targeted this way. They're taking power away from the small businesses that utilize online advertising to run their companies, and they're really giving it back to the leaders at big tech, and then also to the legislators and regulators as well.
You mentioned the fact that that it takes what laws they're already on the books and magnifies them. What laws are already on the books, though?
So mostly at the state level. So if you look at like California, for example, they have some of the most strict laws as it relates to tracking users from one place to the next. And frankly, there are a lot of Californians that have big problems with the fact that those laws are so broad and overreaching. And then also too, just from an enforcement perspective, there are some issues there when it comes to tracking or I guess policing how things are done from one state to the next. There is no federal standard on what it should be. So I think there's a problem there when it comes to seeing really what the right way is to regulate things. Mm-hmm. When I think back to overall like online marketing regulation, I think back to the CAN-SPAM Act of 2003. That's the law that obviously governs commercial email marketing. And as is, we all complain about getting way too many messages in our inbox on a daily basis. We look to the FTC to be the enforcer of that. But unfortunately, the FTC is just one government organization that is largely understaffed right now because people are out because of COVID. So, understanding that the laws that are in place have to be realistic, but also enforcement has to happen to even make that a reality. The solution, David, I think to look for is one that's going to come from the private sector. You're going to have to really leave it to entrepreneurs and to innovators to offer new products and services to the market that enable us to better control really just basic privacy enhancements and also allowing companies to, I guess, better have ownership of data from a first party perspective, not relying so much on Google and Facebook to be the third party controller of, frankly, our customers' information.
You mention about the private industry themselves. How much regulation are they doing, and can we trust them to do that?
How much regulation are they, the private industry specifically?
Yeah, the private companies specifically.
So I think private companies specifically, they're not doing any regulation themselves. Mm-hmm. They're trying to offer products to the market that people genuinely want. Mm-hmm. And that's why you see choices like DuckDuckGo as a browser. You're seeing a lot of new, I think, technologies come to the market that are offering people another way to do things. Even different social models, right? Like you think about MeWe as an alternative to Facebook. That's a subscription-based social media company versus Facebook that has the users sort of share their information with them, and then they obviously sell that to advertisers. So, when it comes to what the innovators or the private solutions, when it comes to what those are and what they'll be, it's always going to be sort of a new product or service that somebody wants.